All right, guys, time to get back at it. Let's see, we had one more very similar to some of the ones we were working on yesterday. So let's see. Notice right here I have a quadratic term in x, but I have no linear term in x, which means we do not have to complete the square in x. Okay, that's good. All right, notice I have a quadratic term in y and a linear term in y. So I do have to complete the square in y. It's just that I have to get this linear term over here on the left with the quadratic term. Okay, so I've got that y squared. I bring this negative 8y over, it becomes plus 8y. And then I'm going to have to come up with a constant there. All right, notice that this constant that we start with, 10, is on the right-hand side, away from all the quadratic and linear terms on the left-hand side, so I'll just leave it there. So whatever I have to add here, I'm going to have to add to this side. All right, so let's see. Again, we take the linear term, or the linear coefficient, we divide by 2 and we square that. Okay, so I'm going to have to do this over here as well. Okay, so I've got x squared, which is already a perfect square. If I want to, I could leave it just x squared, or I could write it as x minus 0 squared if I wanted to. Okay, plus, let's see, this would be y squared plus 8y plus 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16. Okay, I got a 10, and let's see, we already know this guy is equal to 16. Okay. All right, so let's see, I'm done with the x. Okay, now I have to factor this perfect square trinomial. So again, it factors into the square of a binomial, bring the sign of the middle term, the linear term, down. Square root of y squared is y, square root of 16 is 4, okay? And then on the other side, we have 26, okay? So I need to find my center and radius now. Okay, so let's see my center, my HK. Okay, well, it's x minus h, so h is 0. And y minus k, so this would be y minus a negative 4, so k is negative 4. Okay, radius is the square root of this guy. And let's see, radical 26, well, 26 is 2 times 13, and both of those factors are prime, so radical 26 is in simplest radical form. Okay, so we're good there. Okay, let's see. This guy's a little bit different. Okay, let's see a couple things here. I've got a quadratic term in x, and I've got a linear term in x, so I have to complete the square in x. I've got a quadratic term in y, and I've got a linear term in y, so I'm going to have to complete the square in y as well. So let's get all the quadratic and linear terms together on the left-hand side. Okay, so I've got this 3x squared. I bring over this negative 12x, so it becomes positive 12x. Okay, I have this 3y squared. I bring over this 18y, so it becomes negative 18y. And I'm going to leave this constant over there on the left-hand side. All right, now, last week we looked at this, completing squares where the leading coefficient was not 1. We have to get rid of it. Okay, now the nice thing here is since we're working with an equation, we can divide that out. Okay, so I have to divide everything by 3 all the way across. Okay, so I get an x squared plus, this would give me 4x, and I'm going to have to come up with a constant term there to complete the square. This gives me y squared. Let's see, this would be minus 6y, and I'm going to need a constant term there to complete the square. This gives me negative 1, and then whatever I add here and here, I have to add over to the right-hand side. Okay, so let's see. Take the 4, divide by 2 and square it. Take the 6, divide by 2 and square it. And I have to add that over to the right-hand side. and I have to add this over to the right-hand side. Okay. So let's see, x squared plus 4x plus 4 divided by 2 is 2, 2 squared is 4, so that's a 4. Okay, let's see, what do we got here? 6 divided by 2 is 3, 3 squared is 9. Okay, so let's see, this guy was 4, and this guy was a 9. Okay, all right, so let's factor. So I got a perfect square trinomial here, and I got a perfect square trinomial there. We factor that guy into the square of a binomial, bring the sign of the linear term down, square root of x squared is x, square root of 4 is 2. Good. Another perfect square trinomial factors into the square of a binomial, bring the sign of the linear term down, square root of y squared is y, square root of 9 is 3. Okay, let's see. This is 13, so I get 12 over there on the right-hand side. Okay, so my center, my HK, okay, let's see. This would be x minus a negative 2, so h is negative 2. This would be y minus k, so y minus 3, so k is 3. Okay, and then my radius is the square root of this guy. All right, now, radical 12 is not in simplest radical form because we have a factor of 4 in there. Okay, so the square root of 4 is 2, so we would get 2 radical 3 in simplest radical form. Okay, we're good on that one. Okay, let's try another one like that. Okay, notice that I have a quadratic term in y, but no linear term, so I'm not going to have to complete the square in y. But notice I have both a quadratic and a linear term in x, so I'm going to have to complete the square in x. Okay, so this y squared here is positive on the left. This x squared is negative on the right, so let's bring the x's over to the left to make them to make the quadratic term positive. So this negative 6x squared comes over, becomes positive 6x squared. This 24x comes over, becomes negative 24x. Okay, I'm going to leave that 6y squared on the left-hand side. Okay, this constant 25 is on the right-hand side, so leave it where it's at. Okay, and then I have to add 5 to get rid of that guy, move it over to the right. Okay, here. Okay, all right, so let's see, I'm going to have to divide out the 6, divide out the 6, divide out the 6, divide out the 6. Okay, all right, so this gives me x squared. That would be negative 4x. This would be y squared. And then over here, 25 plus 5 is 30. 30 divided by 6 is 5. Okay. All right, so let's see. I've got to complete the square in x. So I've got an x squared, a minus 4x, plus some unknown. I do not have to complete the square in y because y squared without a linear term is already a perfect square, so I can just write that as y minus 0 squared equals a 5. And then whatever constant I add here, I have to add here. So let's see, we take the 4, we divide by 2, and we square that. So I've got to add that over here. Okay, so I get x squared minus 4x plus 4 divided by 2 is 2, 2 squared is 4, okay? Plus y minus 0 squared equals, let's see, that's 5 plus, and we know this guy is 4. Okay. All right, so I've got a perfect square trinomial here, so I factor that guy into the square of a binomial, bring the sign of the middle term, the linear term down, square root of x squared is x, square root of 4 is 2. I'm already done with the y. Y minus 0 squared equals, and obviously that's 9. Okay, so I'm good. It's in standard form. Okay, so I can figure out what my center and my radius is. Okay, so my center, HK, okay, so it would be x minus h, so h is 2. It would be y minus k, so k is 0. Okay, and then my radius would be the square root of this guy. Okay, so r is the square root of 9, and obviously 9 is a perfect square, so we get 3. Okay, we're good there. Okay. All right, let's see. Let's see what's going on here. Okay. Okay, so I have a quadratic term in x, but I don't have a linear term, so I'm not going to have to complete the square in x. I do have a quadratic and linear in y, so I'm going to have to complete the square in y. Now, up to this point, we've always taken the x's and y's and put them on the left-hand side and the constant over on the right-hand side, so I'm going to stay with that. So I'm going to leave that guy where it's at, negative 8x squared. I bring the 8y squared over, so it becomes negative. I bring the 56y over, so it becomes negative. I'm going to leave this constant where it's at. And then I'm going to subtract 13 from both sides to move that guy over as well. Okay. And so let's see. I have to divide by a negative 8 all the way through. Okay, so let's see. This gives me x squared. Negative divided by negative is a positive, so that gives me y squared. Negative divided by negative is a positive, so that gives me 7y equals, and now let's see, this is going to be negative 88, okay, up here. I'm going to get negative 88 divided by negative 8, so that's going to give me 11, positive 11. Okay, so we're in good shape now. Okay, the x squared, there's no linear term with it, so it's already a perfect square, so I can write that as x minus 0 squared. All right, y squared plus 7y is not a perfect square, so I've got to complete the square there. And whatever I add here, I have to add over here. So let's see, that's going to be 7 divided by 2 and then square that. So I have to add the exact same thing over here. Okay. All right, so we get x minus 0 squared plus, let's see, this is going to be y squared plus 7y. Plus, when I square the 7 halves, I get 49 fourths equals 11 plus, again, we did that already over here, it's 49 fourths. Okay. All right, so let's see. I've got my x minus 0 squared. Okay, this is a perfect square trinomial, so I've got to factor that into the square of a binomial. Bring the sign of the middle term down. The square root of y squared is y. The square root of 49 fourths is 7 halves. Equals, let's see, this right here. Okay, that's like 11 over 1. So I'd have to multiply above and below by 4 here, so that would give me 44 over 4 plus 49 over 4. So when I add those guys, 44 plus 49 would be 93. I'm going to get 93 fourths right there. 93 fourths. Okay, so we're good. So we've got to come up with our center and our radius. Okay, so the center here, my HK. Oh, I don't need a comma there. What would I do that for? Okay. All right, so let's see. It's x minus h, so h is 0. And it's y minus k, so that'd be y minus a negative 7 halves. So my k is negative 7 halves. Okay. Then my radius is the square root of 93 fourths. All right, now guys, that has to be put in simplest radical form. Okay, you can't have a fraction in a radicand, so remember that's like the square root of 93 over the square root of 4. All right, so I know the square root of 4 is 2. 93, let's see, this 93, can I do something with that? 93, let's see, is equal to 3 times 31. Yep, and 3 and 31 are both prime, so the only factors of 93 are prime, so it's in simplest radical form. Okay, so that's in simplest radical form. We do not have to rationalize, so we're done. Okay, that wraps it up for today. I'll finish grading the quizzes today. Grades will be returned to you later on today sometime. So if you're wondering what your grade is, just check it around dinner time sometime. They'll all be done. You guys stay safe, and I miss all of you.